coming back with another bullseye of a tutorial here today on the channel. I want to show you guys how you can mix those really mainstream, modern sounding dance hall vocals from Burna Boy. So let's not waste no time. If you guys do like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to suggest more artists down below. So shout out to my subscribers. They said, Nick, you kind of look like Burna Boy a little bit. You should do a Burna Boy preset. And I was like, man, y'all niggas are crazy. So yeah, I'm gonna jump into this Burna Boy preset. Let's go into it right now.
Me, I just want to make my people the visa, so I get in my heart on my liver. If I too stress, you make you leave 'em. Nobody ever be believer. Anytime that I pull up, I deliver. Anytime, any arena, I be God's on like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider. Me, I just want to make my people the visa, so I get in my heart on my liver. If I too stress, you make you leave 'em. Nobody ever be believer. Anytime that I pull up, I deliver. Anytime, any arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider.
Okay, so let's look at how we were able to get this to, get those dance hall, type of mainstream type of sounding vocals. So that was me doing my best impression of Burna Boy. And I was like, man, y'all boys crazy. Somebody said, Nick, you kind of look like Burna Boy. Do a Burna Boy preset. That just threw me off. So yeah, let's get right to it. I'm going to show what it sounds like, with and without the preset. And let's get to these gems. If you want to get the template, you go ahead and check it down below in that pinned link. Okay, so first thing we're going to look at is the auto-tune settings, actually, because I think that's very important for somebody like Burna Boy. A lot of the times with this dance hall type of music, the vocal is really like another instrument. I paid attention to like Burna Boy and also, what is his name, Rema? I think he just did a song with Ice Spice too. He's another dope type of dancehall artist. I like Araya Star too. I like her music too, and I like them. I like their music a lot, So that's the thing about it. I notice a lot of time with dancehall music, it's all about the groove, the rhythm. It's literally dancehall music. It's supposed to make you dance and want to make you move your body. Not all the times the vocal is like rap music where it's like lyrical content and bars, but that's okay because it's all about a feeling, a feeling that kind of triggers your body and makes you want to move. So with somebody like Burna Boy, I like an auto tune to move a little bit. I want it to jiggle and wiggle around a little bit too. Like when they in India and they have that little flute shit and they make the snakes start wiggling. That's what I wanted with his vocal. I want that vocal to wiggle and bounce. That makes the listener want to bounce too. So auto tune, very important. I used a good amount of flex tune, a low amount of humanize, and a good amount of retune speed. And what I'm looking for is the auto tune to kind of like be like a bubble gum and pop. I want to hear the clicks and pops and the little glitchiness of the vocal.
Anytime, any arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider. Anytime, any arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider.
So you kind of hear, it's kind of like when you wake up in the morning, you got a little bit of that Listerine, a little bit of that mouthwash, you gargling. That's kind of what I'm looking from the vocal. I'm looking for that deep type of throaty gargling sound, and I use the auto tune to get it. Okay, vocal preset. Let's bypass it in and out. Let's go.
Anytime, any arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider. Anytime, any arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider.
Okay, now I'm gonna show you guys what it sounds like. Bypass one by one with all the plugins. Let's move it.
Anytime, any arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider. Anytime, any arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider. Anytime, any arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider. Anytime, any arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider. Anytime, any arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider. Anytime, any arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider.
Okay, so very first thing with somebody like Burna Boy and dancehall music in general is that you want that vocal to be very colorful. You want that vocal to be like that cool friend at the party who's got a little bit of drink and they vibing. So I'm looking for a colorful vocal that engages the listener. That's very important with making music. It doesn't matter how crispy, clean, and clarity. Oh my God, that doesn't matter how good the vocal sounds if it doesn't engage the listener, if it doesn't invite the listener to move their body and interact with the song. It does not matter how good it sounds. So I use something like the TG mastering chain because I know it's gonna help add a little bit of something that's important for Burna Boy's vocal, something that's important for dancehall vocals, which is color. So I understand that the TG mastering chain, it has those dynamite diode bridge compressor components. Okay, so this is the diode bridge compressor. I'm using that, and that's giving a lot of that bounce to Burna Boy's vocal. But somebody like Burna Boy too, you know, his music has this nice little swag, this nice little smoothness. So it actually came into play too, because this is like a whole mastering chain, right? You could put this on your master fader, but I put it on a vocal because it has a little bit of that tape too. And I like that tape because it smoothens out Burna Boy's vocal.
Anytime in the arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you, I just want to make my people the visa. So I get in my heart, my liver. If I too stressed, you make me leave them. Nobody ever be believer. Anytime that I pull up, I deliver. Anytime in the arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider. I just want to make my people the visa. So I get in my heart, my liver.
All right, so using that to give a little bit of color. Also with the EQ, Burna Boy's voice is pretty deep, so I use the steepest EQ cut right here. Sometimes it's good to use these analog model type of plugins because they can handicap you a little bit. The farthest that the high cut can go is to about like 100. Look, let me see. 110, so that's pretty good, you know, for, you know, that's pretty like where you want to do with vocals, maybe like a little bit more than 100 to kind of roll off the low end. Maybe sometimes people like Burna Boy, he got a deeper voice, so you might want to get a little bit more aggressive. But as you can hear, the tape is really starting to like smooth out his vocal, and that's important because Burna Boy, he goes back and forth between that kind of like that nice party chill vibe to, you know, rapping aggressive. So, you know, going back and forth, I think is pretty important for Burna Boy getting a little bit of smoothness from the tape, but a little bit of color from the overall chain. After that, we have the CLA2A, and I use the CLA2A because I know Burna Boy, sometimes his lyrics are about love and romance, and, you know, sometimes with love, you know, you like to take it slow. So I'm using a slow-ass compressor, obviously. So I'm drawing upon my human experiences. So this is pretty good because that slow release time is going to hold Burna Boy's voice. And of course, with dancehall music, you know, the instruments are jumping all around the place too. So I don't want my vocal to jump as much as the other kids, which is the other instruments like a trampoline. I don't want everything to be bouncing around. I want the vocal to still have a little bounce, you know, but I want it to be like a deflated basketball where it only has, it could bounce still, but it's still, for the most part, staying low and smooth.
I just want to make my people the visa. So I get in my heart, my liver. If I too stressed, you make me leave them. Nobody ever be believer. Anytime that I pull up, I deliver. Anytime in the arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider. Anytime in the arena.
I'm using the LA2A, understanding that has tubes on the input and output, which in the tubes, you know, the amplification circuit, pretty much, I'm using this to get my dirty gain, right? I'm purposely making it louder on the compressor because the LA2A has tubes on the input and output, and those tubes are making the vocal sound a little bit brighter as well, okay? So after that, we had a de-esser. We already know what this does. Really nothing to talk too much about. I just think that when you have people like Burna Boy or any person that speaks like a different language or using a different accent from what you usually work with, you should be very cognizant of that because he kind of, and that kind of changes how I use the de-esser, because rather than to use one de-esser, I actually kind of use two de-essers. So I felt like the de-esser was being a little bit too grabby, especially with a dancehall vocal, because they likes to bounce around and move around kind of like a yo-yo, you know, or a pogo stick, boom, 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 boom. I want the vocal to bounce around, but I don't want to crush it too much with one de-esser, so I use two.
Anytime in the arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider. Anytime in the arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider. Before you start to criticize, consider. Before you start to criticize, consider. Before you start to criticize, consider.
So, you know, we kind of have that one de-esser right there working on certain words. And pretty much this other de-esser right here is kind of being like the backup. You know, it's like the backup quarterback. When the other one doesn't get the job done, this one comes into the game. This second de-esser right here, I'm using the C4 on high frequency limiter. And this is kind of a little bit better than using a regular de-esser because you can control the attack and the release time. So let's say if I wanted this second de-esser to be a little bit more lazier, I would just make the attack time even slower. So it's going to be a little bit like that slow kid in the classroom that doesn't, you know, you point the laser right there and he's like, he clicks it after, you know, it's gonna be like a little delay. So that's the thing about attack time, is how responsive is the compressor. But it's better on a multi-band though, because I'm only picking the very tippity top.
Before you start to criticize, consider. Before you start to criticize, consider. Before you start to criticize, consider. Before you start to criticize, consider.
Yeah, and of course we're using the low band as well, very slow release, because Burna Boy, I still want that deepness, that's that weight, that's that tone, that's helping really drive that dancehall vocal. That slow release time on that lower band is really controlling it and is letting it flow around. If I was to make it too slow, it would just completely grab it and it wouldn't let go. You feel me? It would be a situation where it's like I took the low end of the vocal and I put like a padded lock on it and I just locked it. You feel me? I still want that low end of the vocal to move. I just don't want it to move as much as the high end. So that's why I use the multi-band.
Before you start to criticize, consider. Before you start to criticize, consider.
So it's like two basketballs. This one is like that deflated basketball that it still bounces, but only so much. And this is like that fully inflated basketball where it's boing, 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 boing. It's going all over the place, right? So, okay, after that, with Burna Boy's vocal, SSLE channel, and I use 2 channel strips. I usually never do that, but the reason why I use the second one is just because the straight up components, you know, the diode bridge of the TG mastering chain giving me the color. But I noticed with Burna Boy's vocals, with dancehall vocals, you still want them to be warm, because when you in the club and you close to somebody, warmth is an engaging thing. Like when you dancing up on a female, like you close with her type shit like that, so you feel warm type shit like that. So that's why I use the SSLG channel. You know, you got to draw upon your experiences as a human being when you're trying to make music, because if you just try to make it like whatever way, it's gonna feel sterile. It's not gonna feel relatable. You gotta use the plugins to make it relatable to the damn audience, you know? Colorful but warm. That's kind of like the sound of dancehall to me, in my opinion.
Before you start to criticize, consider. Before you start want to make my people the visa, so I give them my heart and my liver. If I too stress, you make you leave them. Nobody ever be believer. Anytime that I pull up, I deliver. Anytime, any arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider.
I think that's really important too, is like the dynamic section with Burna Boy, because I'm using a little bit of that VCA circuitry from the SSL to give energy. And that's what it does for me. Like whenever I want a little bit of a bite or a little bit of aggressiveness for a vocal, I will go with the SSLE channel and just do it just a little bit of compression, 1 to 3, just something to get that first light moving that will just really start to engage and open up the eyes. Hello, good morning for the vocal is kind of how I see it. So yeah, important thing with Burna Boy 2 is I was using the gate to get the chatter, to enhance that little out of his voice, the nuances out of his voice. I used that gate. Another song that he did too was City Boy, like when I hear that little type of like Michael Jackson-ish flow, I like to use something like a gate to really squeeze it, to really help the vocal start to pump around and move. Because like I said, dancehall vocal, it gotta move. It gotta, you feel me? Before the audience can move, the vocal gotta move. If the vocal just sit here like this, what's up? That's not gonna want to make the audience move. And you gonna make your vocal sound like this if you overly compress. You feel me? If you try to tame peaks, that's what's gonna happen to your vocal type shit. So after that, we have the CLA 76, and I did not use no compression here. I just used it as a saturator to give a little density to Burna Boy's vocals, because he doesn't really do too much background vocals. He just has a really strong presence lead vocal. So I wanted to make his vocal feel a little bit bigger by using something like saturation. You feel me? So I'm gonna make his voice sound bigger and expand by using saturation, distortion type shit.
Wanna make my people the visa, so I get in my heart, my lever. If I too stressed, you make me leave 'em. Nobody ever be believer. Anytime that I pull up, I deliver. Anytime in the arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider. Want to make my people the visa, so I get in my heart, my lever. If I too stressed, you make me leave 'em. Nobody ever.
I know somebody in the comments is gonna be like, I hear a little bit of background noise. My golden ears, I hear a little bit of background noise. Like, yeah, man, that's coming from my Burna Boy jacket, man. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get into that zone, so I put on that Burna Boy jacket, nigga. I know somebody gonna be in the comment like, I hear a little bit of that jacket, that Burna Boy jacket shuffling around a little bit, man, bro. We dropping jams around here, bro. We not worried about that. RVOCs, using this to give a little bit of body to Burna Boy's voice, a little bit of size at this point. Like how I said, I used the distortion to get size. Now I'm using this compressor to give a little size. We already know what that does. We don't even need to like play that. So after that, we have the fresh air. And I mostly did it with the mid-range. I'm not looking for that top end air conditioner type of high end, like that, you know, when you in your house with your air conditioner, you just hear this really light all the way like dust in the air type of sound. I went with more of that high, you know, this one is kind of like focused more towards the mid-range. So I was looking for a little bit more of that bite versus a little bit more of that super high-end shine.
Want to make my people the visa, so I get in my heart, my lever. If I too stressed, you make me leave 'em. Nobody ever be believer. Anytime that I pull up, I deliver. Anytime in the arena, I be God's own like G.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what I was looking at. After that, we just used this as another gate because my Burna Boy, you see my Burna Boy, like just like the album, my Burna Boy jacket was ruffling up a little bit. So if you guys get the preset, you could just take that off. But it's still good to have a gate too for Burna Boy, you know, because like how I said about his flow in City Boy, when you start to use a gate and you start to really take the zipper on, like pretty much when you use a gate on a vocal, it's like you're taking a zipper and you're tightening up the zipper. You're tightening up the zipper on the vocal. You're tightening up the vocal, and that can add a certain tone to the vocal. That can make the vocal talk in a certain hiccup type of way, you know, jittering type of way. So after that, we have a little bit of the REQ. And we were just using this to roll off a little bit of low end, because at that point we had already did a couple layers of compression, the CLA 76 adding some distortion. So you know that mid range, that low end started to get really buff and really big. You feel me? So we had to, you know, drain it a little bit. And yeah.
Want to make my people the visa, so I get in my heart, my lever. If I too stressed, you make me leave 'em. Nobody ever be believer. Anytime that I pull up, I deliver. Anytime in the arena, I be.
And this part is really important for a vocal. You see how, like, rather than to actually cut this mid-range part right here, which is kind of like still that warmth for Burna Boy, I cut this part right here. So sometimes that's what you got to do. Sometimes, like, you know, if somebody got beef with somebody, you know, they won't go after the person directly. They might go after the brother type shit like that. Like, you know, mafia movies and shit like that. Like, oh, I got a problem with you, so I'm gonna hit your cousin type shit. So like maybe sometimes if you know, when it comes to the mid-range specifically, if you're not trying to take the fork and put it too deep into the mid-range, because you still want that warmth, you still want that like nice little glow, that resonance, that proximity, that, you know, when somebody comes up to you a little bit, you get that type of mid-range, maybe you might want to cut somewhere around it and not necessarily at it, you know what I mean? Sometimes you don't want to go to the bomb, you just want to go to the blast radius type shit. So yeah, after that, we had a little bit of that de-esser again, and this was just to like counterbalance the fact that I did another high shelf. I did not get my super high shelf from the fresh air. I got it from the actual EQ, you know, so I wanted to lift the vocal up a little bit more. After that, we had a chorus stomp, just going into an H delay, like nothing crazy. This is really good for a Burna Boy, because it gives that wiggle, wiggle, like a vinyl. It gives a little bit of that wobble, you know. So I use the chorus on going into the H delay.
Want to make my people the beezer. So I get in my heart, my lever. If I too stressed, you make me leave 'em. Nobody ever be believer. Anytime that I pull up, I deliver. Anytime in the arena, I be God.
So I like that chorus going into the delay because it applies a little bit of Vaseline. You know, because like when I turn off the chorus, you hear like the delay is just too much of a like a teacher that's too much on point. Do this, do that, do this. The delay is just too like it's just too serious. You feel me? So with dancehall music, to get the listener engaged, to get the listener on the moving, you gotta approach it in a situation where the vocal is like doing this little type of swag thing. It has a little bit of slickness, it has a little bit of wiggle to it, type shit. Okay, so after that, we was getting a little bit of a hairy reverb. I like it for Burna Boy's music specifically because it's like this big space that the drums is the drum rhythm is really tight and the melodies are really ambient. So I used something like a Abbey Road's plate. In the high end, I just left the high end flat. Usually I would roll it off because this plate right here is bright, but I used it to get a little bit of a hairy reverb. If you wanted more of a hairy reverb, you could push like the drive or the analog. And by hairy reverb, I mean like that reverb that has like a little bit of chia frill. Like, you know, like Tory Lanez on his music, it has like this little spikiness to the reverb. It really helps to cut through. Sometimes you can do that by boosting top end, or you can do it by just not rolling off the top end type shit.
Want to make my people the beezer. So I get in my heart, my lever. If I too stressed, you make me leave 'em. Nobody ever be believer. Anytime that I pull up, I deliver. Anytime in the arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider.
And that's another great way of bringing out maybe consonas. Maybe you want to bring out the S's. Maybe a rapper is rapping like that, and that's a very important part of his flow. You done already tamed the S's on the vocal, but now you still want that. You want them transitions, them sliding transitions to come through. Maybe you can just use a reverb, let the high end extend, and let the high end tell the listener that there is like that those are the things going on, rather than the actual vocal itself. So that's the type of tricks that I like to use. Like if I have a rapper who's saying shoulda, shit, like those certain words that have impact, that have force, you know, maybe I just want it to be forceful in the background and not necessarily in the front, which is the actual vocal that they're hearing. So I'll just let the reverb take all the S's and splash, let the reverb have all the S's and let my vocal actually be like pretty nice and de-harshed. So I still get the impact, right, without cutting people's ears. After that, doubler, nothing crazy. Like literally nothing crazy for Burna Boy. As it comes to a certain point where artists like Burna Boy, like, man, they just got talent, bro. Like he just got talent, bro. You feel me? Like you can only do so much little processing here and there and here and there. Like, but at the end of the day, it's like these guys, they come into the studio, they have fun and they put it into the music. You feel me? So if you can have fun while you're making music, put it into the music and it's captured, right? And you play it back out in the club, then people gonna feel that fun. You know, it's like storage, just like how you can store just like how you can store like data and memory on a motherfucking flash drive, you can store experiences inside of music. You feel me? If you can have fun while you're making music and put it in there and just make sure that it's just a clean picture of the night, the vibe, that time when y'all was, in the studio, and you play it back out, chances are people are gonna feel that same energy. They're gonna feel like, oh yeah, they're gonna feel like they was in a room with you, because that's what it is. Music is storage for emotions, kind of like how this is storage for like data and shit. Okay, so after that, LA2A and just kind of really like giving the vocal some presence, but even more brightness, because I'm getting a little bit more of that tube saturation sound.
Want to make my people the beezer. So I get in my heart, my lever. If I too stressed, you make me leave 'em. Nobody ever be believer. Anytime that I pull up, I deliver. Anytime in the arena, I be God's own like Jesus.
Yeah, so it helps bring a little bit of solidity to Burna Boy's vocal. Okay, so after that, let's look at the ad-libs real fast. Nothing crazy with the ad-libs. Boom. A nice little EQ. I wanted my ad-libs to be pretty bright, because the vocal was kind of like warm and colorful and really focused. So I used a lot of the ad-libs to get my brightness. So, just rolling off a little bit of bottom, doing this kind of like cut-in, move right here. After that, we had the RVOCs, mostly just adding presence with the compressor and the gate. And SSL E channel strip, you know, just kind of coming in, boosting some brightness, cutting up the lows, all that shit like that. Y'all know how I feel about talking about ad libs. Like, come on, this isn't gonna make or break the song, but it did help, you know, using the CLA vocals as well. And let's look at what it sound like with and without.
Want to make my people the visa, so I get in my heart, my liver. If I too stressed, you make me leave them. Nobody ever be believer. Anytime that I pull up, I deliver. Anytime in the arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider.
Yeah, using the CLA vocals because it gives a different type of reverb and delay from the actual lead vocal. So that's kind of how like I'm getting my little bit of separation. Okay, I'm showing them that this lead vocal has this certain type of flavors, ketchup, mayonnaise, mustard, but the ad libs has this like honey, garlic, ranch, lemon, pepper, different flavors. I'm giving the listener different flavors, and that's kind of like giving them different choices. Now they can see the whole meal, the whole plate, because now it's different flavors. So they're like, oh, this flavor's right here, this flavor's right there. That's how you create separation in your mixes using tone. You feel me? Sometimes if you just pick a different reverb from what's on the lead vocal, that in itself will give you a little bit of separation. That in itself will give you a little bit of depth because it's two different flavors in the mouth of the listener type shit. Okay, so after that, just a flanger, you know, nothing crazy, just to make these have a little bit of wobble, even more wobble, but in a different way. You know, using the chorus on the lead vocal, but now using the flanger on the ad libs for Burna Boy. And that's pretty good because that's affecting these things right here too, like, which is the delay. It's affecting the delay. It's also affecting the parallel compressor, and that flanger is going into that parallel compressor on the SSLE channel, and it's crushing it and all that. So it just really sounds mangled and really wiry and weird.
Want to make my people the visa, so I get in my heart, my liver. If I too stressed, you make me leave them. Nobody ever be believer. Anytime that I pull up, I deliver. Anytime in the arena, I be God's own like Jesus. Before you start to criticize, consider.
All right, so that's pretty much the end of the video that we got here today. If you guys did like this Burna Boy vocal preset, don't forget to check it down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Drop more suggestions for artists that y'all like down below. I'm probably gonna do WizKid, you know, probably gonna do WizKid too. You know, I fuck with WizKid heavy. And yeah, if you guys have more suggestions for artists, drop it down below. Check out the preset, all that, whoop-de-whoop. I'll see you next time, YouTube family. All right, appreciate y'all now. Peace.